Examples from everyday life. Tom and Ben are students and intimate friends. Every day at school they greet each other cheerfully. One day Tom sees Ben and greets him in a friendly manner, but Ben frowns and does not reply. As a consequence, Tom gets angry and stops speaking with Ben. In this situation, the process occurs in this way. 1. Ignorance. Tom does not know the reason behind Ben's bad mood, and he does not reflect with wisdom to work out the truth of the situation. Ben may be upset about something or have an unresolved problem. 2. Volitional formations. Tom forms various ideas corresponding to his personal habits and opinions. He speculates about what Ben must be thinking or feeling, and mental defilements may make Tom feel confused, angry, or offended. 3. Consciousness. In this disturbed state, Tom notices those of Ben's actions that fuel and confirm his current prejudices and interprets them accordingly. And the more he does this, the more convinced he is that he is right. Tom finds all of Ben's expressions and actions annoying. 4. Mind and body. The various aspects of Tom's mind and body, feelings, thoughts, mental states, facial expressions, gestures, etc., manifest as symptoms of anger and conceit. The physical and mental factors that arise match consciousness. 5. Sixth sense basis. The sense basis involved in this situation are alert and fully primed. 6. Contact. There is contact, particularly eye contact or ear contact, with those characteristics and traits of Ben that are particularly pronounced or arresting. For example, sullenness, unresponsiveness, and apparent scorn and disrespect. 7. Feeling. A feeling of discomfort, stress, pain, or sadness. 8. Craving. A desire for the destruction and extinction of the discomforting, oppressive sense impressions. 9. Grasping. Tom grasps onto the idea that Ben's behaviour is deliberately aimed at him, and that the issue must somehow be sorted out. 10. Becoming. Tom's behaviour is conditioned by grasping. His behaviour, kama bhava, is adversarially. His existence at this moment, upati bhava, is an adversary. 11. Birth. Tom embraces this existence as an adversary. He clearly sees himself as Ben's foe. He separates me and him and identifies himself as one who must confront Ben. 12. Aging and death. The self arising in this state of conflict is sustained by various perceptions, for example, being a person who is able, skilled, honourable, dignified or successful. These qualities, however, have opposing qualities, say of inferiority, failure, dishonour or defeat. As soon as the desired self arises, it is threatened by the possibility of turning into its opposite. Tom may not be able to sustain the identity of a skilled and effective adversary. Rather, he may become weak and unable to defend his honour. Suffering continually assails him. It ranges from the fear that he will not get what he wants, the tension and worry involved in the search for a desired state of being, right up to the disappointment if he is unsuccessful. And even in the case that he is successful, a waning of enjoyment inevitably follows. This suffering envelops and overshadows the mind, conditioning further ignorance and another turning of the wheel. This suffering is like a festering wound, which steadily releases toxins. It causes problems for the person and for others, affects behaviour and shapes the entire course of life. In the above example, Tom may be unhappy all day, be unable to concentrate on his studies, act and speak badly towards others, and cause further conflicts. If Tom were to respond correctly from the beginning, this cycle of problems would not occur. When Ben does not smile or return his greeting, Tom would reflect with wisdom that Ben may have encountered some trouble. Perhaps he was scolded by one of his teachers, is short of money, or is suffering from some other unresolved issue. Thinking in this way, he will not be upset, rather his heart will remain spacious and full of compassion. He may inquire after the cause, comfort Ben, help him find a solution to the problem, or simply allow Ben to have some quiet time to himself. Even if a negative cycle begins to turn, there is an opportunity to make amends. Say the cycle has reached contact phasa, where Tom is aware of Ben's unpleasant behaviour, and Tom begins to suffer as a result. Tom can give rise to mindfulness instead of falling victim to an ensuing craving for escape, vibhavatanha. By considering the situation, wisdom severs the cycle and Tom experiences Ben's actions in a new way. Tom uses reason to reflect on Ben's actions and on his own appropriate response. Tom's mind will be clear and free from stress, and he will think of ways to help his friend. The arising of wisdom brings freedom to the mind. No self is fabricated that is prone to disturbance. Apart from creating personal problems, wisdom gives rise to the compassionate wish to reduce others' suffering. This has the opposite effect from ignorance, which leads to the wheel of rebirth, samsara, to craving and attachment, and to a restricted sense of self, which is subject to pain and has far-reaching consequences. At this point, let us review some important aspects of dependent origination. The entire process of dependent origination described above occurs rapidly. It is completed in an instant. For example, a student who has failed his exams, a person who has lost a loved one, or a person who sees his beloved with another partner may be anguished, frightened, or in shock. He may even scream or faint. The stronger the attachment and importance bestowed on something, the more intense the reaction. The conditional factors need not follow a set temporal sequence. In a similar manner, a piece of chalk, a blackboard, a clean surface, and the act of writing are all conditions for written words on the blackboard. The teaching of dependent origination emphasizes an understanding of a natural law, a process found in nature, for discerning the source of problems and the specific points that require correction. The details of that correction, the methods of practice, are not directly connected to the teaching of dependent origination, but are matters related to the path, magga, or the middle way, majjhima patipada. Some of the former examples are superficial and lack subtlety, especially those illustrating the link between ignorance and volitional formations, the link between craving and clinging, and the link in which sorrow, lamentation, etc. induce a further rotation of the cycle. Some of the examples describing ignorance are limited to specific circumstances. They are not matters present in each moment of life. This may lead some people to think that ordinary people can live much of their lives without ignorance, or that dependent origination does not give a true account of daily life. Therefore, it is important to provide a clearer, more detailed explanation of some of the difficult points. E. Deeper explanations. When encountering an object or a situation, people normally interpret it, create ideas about it, and respond to it influenced by the following four predispositions or subconscious impulses. 1. Kama, the desire for gratification by way of the five senses. 2. Bhava, the desire for or anxiety over self-existence, the desire to be a particular way and to maintain a desired state of existence. 3. Ditthi, habitual views, beliefs, doctrines and theories that are attached to and cherished. 4. Avidya, delusion, ignorance, a lack of true awareness and comprehension of causes, effects, meanings, values and objectives, and of the natural relationship between things or between events, a lack of discernment of the law of causality, the mistaken view that a self acts and is acted upon, an understanding of things conditioned by personal conjecture or mental fabrication. These four predispositions, especially factors 3 and 4, are connected. When one does not clearly understand the truth, avijja, one tends to act in accord with habitual views, beliefs, ideas and concepts, ditthi, many of which one assimilates from society. Factors 3 and 4 also influence factors 1 and 2. Ignorance and socially conditioned views determine and control people's thoughts and actions, what they like, what they need, and how they seek satisfaction. They lie buried in a person's subconscious and dictate the behavior without the person being aware of them. It is a common perception that people act entirely out of free will, but this is a delusion. If one investigates closely and asks what people really want, why they want these things, and why they follow a particular course of action, one sees that there is no real freedom of choice for most people. Their behavior is conditioned by their upbringing and education, by culture, by religious beliefs, and by social conventions. They choose and act within the confines of these social factors, even if they depart from the usual, i.e. normal, forms of behavior. They still use these factors as a standard for comparison. Everything that ordinary people identify with lies within the domain of the 5 aggregates and is shaped by these 4 predispositions. Apart from being absent of any real substance or self, these things exert an unrelenting power over people, who, while under their sway, have no independence. These 4 predispositions are called asava, often translated as effluent or outflow, something that leaks out, or as taint, or something that festers and ferments in the heart. These things leak out and stain the mind when a person encounters sense objects. Whenever a person contacts something by way of the senses or thinks of something, these asavas permeate and contaminate the mind. One's experience of sense objects is not guided by wisdom, but is mediated by the taints. This state of affairs prevents objective knowing and leads to continual problems. These taints govern unenlightened people's behavior, including their thoughts and actions, without people being aware of them. They are the agents behind the basic mistake of viewing things as me or mine, which is the most fundamental level of ignorance. They are the starting point for dependent origination. When there is the arising of the taints, there is the arising of ignorance. Ignorance is then the condition for volitional formations, by which people act with a deluded sense of self. Similarly, one can say that people are not free because their behavior is ruled by unrecognized volitional impulses. One definition for ignorance is a lack of discernment of the three universal characteristics, especially the quality of non-self. A person is unaware that the things considered to be a being or a person, a self, me and you, etc., exist as a stream of myriad physical and mental components that are interrelated and mutually dependent. The continual arising and dissolution of these components causes this stream to perpetually change shape. People exist as a collection of thoughts, desires, habits, inclinations, opinions, values, perceptions, insights and beliefs, both irrational, erroneous beliefs and well-grounded, correct beliefs. These thoughts, etc., are the result of cultural transmission, education and ongoing responses, both to internal events and to one's environment. When people are unaware of this fact, they identify with one or another of these components. Through such self-identification, these things deceive and subjugate people. They lead one to see things in the context of a self and to believe that one is a free agent behind action. At this point, let us look at another link that is difficult to understand. The link between craving and cling, which is similarly a stage involving mental impurity. The three kinds of craving mentioned earlier are all expressions of a single form of basic craving, which all unawakened people possess. This craving is evident when one investigates the deeper workings of the mind, beginning with its lack of understanding of the interdependent relationship of things. This misunderstanding produces the distorted sense of self, which in turn generates an underlying desire for existence. The desire for this illusory self to exist forever. The desire for existence is not abstract, but it is connected to the desire for sense objects. A person desires existence in order to experience desirable objects and to gratify sense desire. People want to be because they want to get. The desire for sense objects amplifies the desire for existence. When the desire for existence is strong but the person does not acquire desirable sense objects, however, the reaction is a state of existence, bhava, that is unsatisfactory, objectionable and unendurable. The person then wants this state of existence to end, but as soon as there is a desire for extinction, the desire for acquisition resurfaces, since there is the fear that with extinction one may not experience desired pleasure. The desire for existence thus follows in its wake. The same process occurs when one acquires an object of desire, but not to a satisfactory degree, or when one acquires an object, but one starts to desire something else. The most basic and all-encompassing desire is the desire for more. One finds that human beings are perpetually searching for a happiness that surpasses the happiness they are currently experiencing. Unawakened beings constantly miss or forsake the present moment. People find the present moment hard to endure. They want to escape from it and seek a more gratifying state of existence. The desire to get, the desire to be, and the desire to cease existing thus continually spin in a vortex in the lives of ordinary people. Because this cycle is subtle and occurs in every moment, people are not aware that they are constantly struggling to escape from the previous moment and to seek gratification from each subsequent moment. Craving stems from ignorance, because people do not understand the interdependent nature of things. There occurs a fundamental error. They see things either as substantial, as possessing a stable and permanent core or self, or see things as existing for a period of time in a stable, substantial way, and then dissolving. All unawakened people hold these two views in subtle degrees, and hence are subject to the three kinds of craving, because of the deluded and deep-seated view that things possess a permanent, solid self. There arises the craving for existence. And because of ignorance and doubt, there arises the competing view that things possess a solid substance, but that this substance or self perishes and disappears. Subsequently, there arises the craving for extinction. These two wrong views give the opportunity for craving to arise. If a person understands the fluid, interdependent nature of things, there can be no permanent solid self, nor can there be a real objective self that dissolves and disappears. Neither craving for being nor craving for extinction has any foundation to stand on. Craving for sense pleasure also results from these two wrong views. Fearing that the self or the pleasure may disappear, people anxiously search for personal gratification, and because they see things as permanent and solid, they grab onto things in order to reinforce a sense of stability. On a coarse level, craving manifests as the search for sensual pleasure and for situations providing such pleasure, or as boredom with pleasures already achieved. People who have no inner independence feel tedium and agitation when they are unable to experience gratifying sense objects. They constantly search around for new forms of pleasure to escape their disquiet and discomfort. When they do not get what they want, they feel disappointment, discouragement, and self-loathing. Their happiness and unhappiness are entirely dependent on external conditions. Time without stimulation or activity then becomes a punishment or a misfortune. Boredom, depression, loneliness, and discontent increase both for the individual and in society. Even though there is an increase of stimulating objects, and the search for stimulation becomes more crude and passionate. A deeper inspection reveals that problems like drug abuse and teenage delinquency stem from a lack of patience, boredom, and the wish to escape from the state of existence one is born into in that moment.